All right, and we're on. Yes,
We
it's,
are on.
yeah, it's just the first episode of hopefully many. We'll see where this journey takes us, I guess.
Yeah, it's I think the most important thing is to do it just for fun and treat it like a passion project because I think that journaling and self-reflecting and just fleshing out ideas and like exploring each other's like paradigms on how we think the world works and all the things, right? That's just helpful to do for ourselves, even if no one else hears it.
Yeah, definitely. Just
So it's
yeah, being able to listen back to it and just even like 5 years time back in like 2020, there's still some of those journals that are kicking around that I've looked into. And you
mm,
just think about how you were at that point in time.
exactly, and that actually reminds me as well that we actually recorded a lake walk with CJ, didn't we? Didn't we record one?
Yeah, yeah, definitely at some point we
And it was in that, yeah,
yeah, I'd say it was like a lot about history on that one. We found ourselves falling into that most of the time.
yeah. CJ, he knows a lot about that sort of thing. Like he knows a lot about his interests, that's for sure. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, in that same light, wouldn't it be fascinating now to listen to that in 2025, the same way that hopefully it'll have you know, that same gravity to hear what's going on today and now with us here.
yeah. Especially like if you've got that recording, I reckon it'd probably be a nice piece to throw up at some point if we looked into it.
Yeah,
Because we were gonna do another recording a while
absolutely.
ago. Remember we were gonna chat about just basically this, just anything, but we ended up going on a tangent about the hobbies we were into instead, so it didn't really get anywhere. But that's the beauty of it. You never know where it's gonna take you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right, well, let's stop breaking the fourth wall and I reckon a good place to start is you should tell us a little bit about what you were just doing before
Yeah,
we called.
yeah. I had to lock in for 15, 20 minutes just to do another part on the Jordan Peterson future authoring program. Ended up buying that the other week, and the part that I was going into was about the future you could have. It starts off about like the future you want and like where it would take you if you were to go down that good path. But in this one, it was about how you're going to go down a bad path and exactly what you're going to continue to do and what the outcome of those situations are going to lead to. So,
Mm.
yeah, pretty much.
That sounds very helpful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because it's pretty easy to cruise through, especially in some of these jobs, and just cruise through during the day and then at the night time absolutely do nothing, and that's your whole life. You wake up, get into work, get home from work, and try and detach and never actually make any progress in any other areas.
Yep, and I mean that's the brutal reality of a 9 to 5 is that you're too exhausted to pursue any of your passions or any of your extracurricular activities because you're too busy just trying to earn that baseline income to keep yourself afloat. And that's the trap you fall into. And then as you get older, and I guess, like maybe you become a creature of habit and you kind of accept things the way they are. And maybe, it sounds a bit depressing, but I suppose it is in some ways. You let your dreams die and you just focus on doing the bare minimum of what you have to just to kind of get yourself through each week, you know,
Yeah,
like what
definitely.
bills and rent and everything. And so yeah, you're too tired to pursue anything outside of that. Because when you're tired, you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, it's
Um,
very easy just to mindlessly scroll or watch television and not actually have anywhere, any goals in mind outside of, I guess, like finishing the work week and maybe celebrating on the weekends. Do that for too many years, and suddenly you're looking at yourself in your mid-30s, and you've got no skills or any goals that you've actually attained in those years that you were working. So that was a lot of the part that I had, was trying to get skills and trying to put down goals that are tangible but also like achievable. Not aiming too low, because if you do that, then I guess it's good in some sense if you've got several goals that are like small to big, because then you can work your way up and actually have a bit of a checklist to go off. And
Mm.
that's where it was at. It was, I kind of said, oh, look, in the next 5 years, look at myself at a certain age, and then I'll have like, no real foundation set if I just continue where I'm at, and pretty much just be doing the same thing I'm doing now. So, and this is a good segue to it, just trying something different that we've never done before, which I guess we have, as we spoke in the beginning, but we never actually went anywhere with it. So just to treat this as more of like a fun hobby is perfect, and just go from there.
Yep, and like the thing is, over the years we've had so many like really, really good conversations that have covered such a wide variety of topics that are just lost to the sands of time because I mean you can't hoard every key insight and you can't hoard every great idea or great conversation because there's just too many of them. But at least if we can when the magic's happening, I mean it's the bare minimum, right? Like you're having a good chat, you're covering some interesting stuff. Like the bare minimum is just pressing record. Like all we have to do is press record and then just sink into it, and then it's just happening.
Yeah, and for the people at home, the context behind this is we probably were on the phone for about 2.5 hours before this, and we're gonna do a bit of a sort of topic similar to what we talked about last couple of hours. However, why do it tomorrow if we've got the time today? So that's why we're here, and we thought we'd just cover something pretty baseline and talk about, yeah, just I guess the future. Um,
Yeah. Um, I guess on that note though, I think because when it comes to goals and when it comes to this need for progression that we feel, right? Because we feel people are happy when they're progressing
Is the reality, right? It's escaping me. Um, there's that philosophical, I guess you could call it like a philosophy idea. It's the guy that's endlessly pushing the rock up the hill over and over and over again. Do
oh,
you know the one I mean?
yeah, it's escaping me at the moment as well. But yeah, I know the one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. And so like the point I'm trying to make is of course that like when we're all in our grinds and we're setting goals and we're doing things, I mean it kind of is like somewhat it's like a little bit devil's advocate to this idea of needing to progress and needing to have goals and always needing to kind of level up because at the end of the day it's kind of an illusion because what we're really doing is we're just pushing the rock up the hill and then the rock rolls all the way to the bottom again. And then if we just go, oh, there's no point pushing this rock, there's no point pushing the rock, you get pulled into like that soul crushing despair of just being, you're either growing or you're dying. Like, oh well, I guess I'm dying because I'm not pushing the rock. And then you start pushing the rock again, and you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a bit better. Just doing it right. It's progress keeps us happy, and that's the message that it's trying to convey.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
It's an interesting topic of like, you know, is it despair that nothing matters, or is that kind of a blessing to be like, well, at the end of the day, in what 100 years or whatever, no one's gonna remember anyone. So it's
mm,
do what you want. Like,
exactly, and that's it's hard because like you said it's either liberating to be like you can do whatever you want because no one will know, like no one will remember you, nothing will matter, like you don't know who your great grandparents were, probably I don't know who my great parents were, which means that we're only like 2 or 3 generations away at any given moment from being completely forgotten out of history, unless you're like a really really influential figure, like like Jesus or Buddha or someone on that scale that gets remembered for thousands and thousands of years. But even then, like yeah, people are still going to be talking about Jesus in 100,000 years.
Yeah, and who's to
Like
know?
it's just a matter of scale, really. Like the sands of time eventually swallow everything. So this is something I've struggled with personally a lot over the course of my life is that um you know it's hard to figure out what the point is when it all just feels meaningless. Like it's all futile because it doesn't matter what you do, how much you achieve, your goals you set or whatever, you know, if you die and it literally just goes black and in a few hundred years you're completely forgotten about. And even if let's just assume that you're like a Elon Musk, right? Or someone that's just like coming in and doing crazy things that people, would write about in history books, like Kangas Khan, infinite amount of examples. Even those people are forgotten eventually. Like I'm sure there were some very notorious, incredible warriors that existed in, the hunter-gatherer days or whatever that we never know about.
Yeah,
That did crazy, heroic, or courageous things and saved their village, and they were talked about for hundreds of years within their little communities and stuff. But like when we're talking about like big scales, it doesn't really matter. And that's where it's realizing that the only thing that really matters is the present moment in a
yeah,
lot of ways.
yeah. It's the only thing that is actually real at the moment. Like, I think like a question for you would be, do you think it's too late to be on that influential scale? Like, do you think currently we're too far gone? We can't get to that level of like generational remembrance, I guess you could call it.
Um, I don't think anything is impossible, and but that just comes from me, being very clear about my mindset and the language that I use, right? Like I would never want to shoot myself in the foot and say, oh, it's impossible for, X, Y, Z, or to be, reach the point of being, generationally remembered and all of that.
Pretty
I
much
think it's
like,
possible,
yeah, just like
yeah,
sell
though
yourself
even
short.
if we
Yeah,
were to achieve it. Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not going to sell myself short. Though, even if we did achieve it, the sands of time will still always win no matter what. So it's kind of like you have to decide, are we going to start pushing that rock or not? Even though we know that the rock will come back down to the exact same place and all of that effort will be for nothing. The sun will, explode and swallow the earth in a few billion years and all that, right? Um, you know, do we, despite the futility of everything, just push the rock anyway to keep ourselves happy?
yeah. I'd say, like, as long as you do something that feels meaningful to you, because it's like for a lot of people that might be, and this is for me, like a lot of people might think that getting the job or progressing the career is what really matters to some people, but other people like could be happy with that minimal wage, just scraping by, but they've got like loving people, great family, friends, and that's
Mm.
that's all that matters. And I think we kind of lose that in
Yeah.
today's society a bit with social media and not being able to have people present around you. It seems like everyone kind of wants to like, one foot out the door when you hang with them these days. There's always like somewhere else they've got to be. Everyone's busy, but
Mm.
yeah, I think
That is interesting.
pushing the
And
rock is
yeah,
definitely what's needed. Just having something to aim up towards.
mm. Yeah, it's something I've wrestled a lot with over my life, just because like it's always felt very hard to even want to begin, considering how futile it all it all eventuates into the sands of time, swallowing everything. But then again, since the present moment is the only thing that's real, right? Right, like not even as I say the present moment, right? Because that still just ends up being in the past. Like it's like that actual tangible moment of right now. You do need to kind of push the rock in to some extent because you don't want to end up with your present moments, plural, in the future being that of like suffering, right? And what I mean by that is like you don't need to live in a mansion, but you don't want to be homeless or you don't want to be living in like a shitty neighborhood where you don't feel safe, just like, walking around your neighborhood with your headphones in, because you feel like you got to be on edge or whatever all the time, like
Yeah.
that sort of thing where, there are base needs. I mean, whether, you subscribe to there are like lots of psychological theories about that sort of thing with like I think the one that most people would know would be Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So it's like you need to have your base needs taken care of. Like, do you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
No, you've probably mentioned it in the past, but run it through.
So it's the idea is that you have base needs, which you need, and you need to work towards the higher needs, which are more like self-actualization, enlightenment, creativity, belonging, love, those sorts of needs at the very top of the pyramid, and then the base needs being like food, water, shelter. If you're starving, like you're not going to give a shit about your social status or how many bitches you have if you're literally starving to death. Like it's just that sort of thing where you can only really concern yourself with status and belonging and some of the things we've already talked about, like whether it's wanting to be remembered, contemplating whether you strive for this, maximum capacity excellence and don't waste a single shred of your potential, right? Because you just go, 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 push the rock. Or do you sit there and, smoke a joint and listen to music and accept that whether you pushed the rock or not, it didn't matter and that you're actually just enjoying the present moment, not too busy overloading yourself, right? It's like to even be debating these sorts of ideas, we have to be beyond the threshold of, shelter, food, water, and safety. Man, I kind of lost lost track of why I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. To be
No,
honest,
no, that's all
but
right.
that as an idea, like that scans though. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, like in my opinion, it would just be what what is more worth to you? Like whatever you think is more important, like pursue that. And if you can, you can support yourself throughout that, then maybe that's all that you need in life.
Mm. And
But
and I remembered why I brought it up too. It's you mentioned about the people who might be living a little bit under, like they're underachieving a bit, but they have like maybe a loving family and all the rest of it, and they have a good support network and all of that. That's an example of someone that has successfully. They might be underachieving because they're just cutting it each year with the amount they earn, but that's enough to satisfy their base needs. And then because they have enough time and energy to actually properly progress up the rest of the pyramid, because of their family, because of whatever it is in their rich life, that's keeping them going, they're actually higher on the pyramid than someone that earns 20 times as much as them, but they're too busy and they lack those belonging, love, connection sort of needs at the top.
yeah, yeah. So
You know?
sacrifice like those sort of aspects to go and achieve, which might not
Mm.
actually complete them in the end, where these other people
Yeah,
are actually more happy.
yeah, yeah. Because they fell into the trap of they satisfied their base needs, right, with like the food, water, and shelter. But maybe that's a hole they keep trying to fill with endless materialism. without realizing that their materialism needs were actually satisfied a long time ago, and that fifth Bugatti is not going to actually fix it.
Yeah, and I guess like the whole fifth Bugatti, it's could they take that cut and step back, once you do get to that sort of threshold in life of like that sort of wage. Like I imagine I've never been at that sort of, top echelon of like societal classes, but I'd imagine it would be pretty hard to like come down from that high.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's almost like eating too much sugar or binging on too much of anything where like it does kind of it's referred to being spoiled for a reason, I guess. Once you've cracked out on that much success, that much material success, you know you go to like a hotel where like this is just hypothetical. It's like, and you go to a hotel that most people would give their left arm to stay a night in because it's so fancy, but because you're so spoilt from all your material success, maybe you sit there and it's like not exciting anymore, and you're surrounded by a bunch of people you don't even like who are just using you for your money or whatever, and it's just like it's just not it, you know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like
but like that with anything, right?
That sort of genuine like connection, because it's like right now, it's like the friends. I'm sure it's similar to you. Like the friends that I have, it's all like genuine connections. You can call them up after a few weeks of not chatting at all, and you just have a yarn and talk anything. And there's no like using anyone for anything. It's all just like whatever we can talk about or whatever we want to do, which is really good. Like that's what you need in life. Like without friends, like what do you really have? Like friends and family. Like if you had all the money in the world, it wouldn't really get you anywhere. I think like a transition from this is like I guess what's in my mind. I'm just like speaking whatever. Is like this sort of level of just like I don't know, I guess not exposing yourself, but kind of putting yourself on like the vulnerability like platform right now. Like YouTube comments are gonna come in, people share it around. There's gonna be like negativity, but also probably like some positivity around like this sort of just having a yarn with the boys. Which isn't really something that I don't know about you, but I don't really expose myself to. You don't usually want to be the center of attention in anything. Like how are you feeling about throwing this up?
I think a mix of like curiosity, but also, I guess there'll be days where if we're talking hypothetically, if like we were like doing this regularly, and there was enough of a base there for comments and that, there's a few different approaches. Like I think most people just don't read their comments when they reach that point. Like you think about someone like an Elon Musk or a Donald Trump, right? They can't go anywhere online without seeing people's opinions of them everywhere. Joe Rogan would be another example, especially because Joe Rogan has to spend 3 hours talking with his guests, and sometimes he might slip up or do something, and then they just clip that and just burn him at the stake for it. And I mean, obviously he has made some fuck ups. Like, do you remember when he had some of his friends on the podcast? I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it might have been Joey Diaz.
And it's like maybe locker room talk, and this is like years ago.
Hey. One of Joe's friends basically was talking about how he was. Yeah. Do you know? I think you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where one of Joe's friends was basically just like, yeah, I got all these chicks to like, exchange sexual favors with me, in exchange for stage time at the club that they were working at. So all these young chicks were coming in. And he's like, oh, I don't know, like, you're pretty good, but I've got a pretty busy lineup, so I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get you through. And then just like, give him that offer, give whoever's like putting out the stage time, basically.
Yeah.
and Joe's like laughing his ass off without any like sort of like, he's not putting on a political lens. He's not thinking, oh shit, what are the comments going to say when they hear me like laughing like this? My friend's just like talking about doing some real heinous stuff, and I'm just,
over there, like it's
just
bloody
leaning into that pretty
yeah,
heavily.
yeah, like just like
And
locker
so,
room talk.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah,
um,
you can't go onto a platform like this and be 100% immune. Like there's no way everyone's gonna sit there and like, kiss your ass or just say it's the best thing ever. Especially like, I mean,
yeah,
so much content online, so many podcasts, especially from like Joe Rogan for the example. Like you said, there's gonna be times where people, you slip up and you say stuff like that, um,
yeah.
which yeah, it's fair enough. Like open platform, right? Like speak your mind, I guess. And if you want
Yeah,
to post it, like I guess take the repercussions with that.
and that's also the beauty of free speech as well, is that you have the right to say some profoundly stupid and ignorant things, and that's the beauty of free speech, is that people can take your idea and they can deconstruct it, and but that's beautiful. That's discourse. That's freedom of speech. That's what you want. So it's actually kind of a good thing in a way. It's like a beautiful. It's one of the things I actually do love. There's a lot of things you can criticize the West for, right, for their impact on the world. Um, but they definitely know when you have like, you think of like the American eagle and freedom. Americans are obsessed with their freedom. Everyone loves to like joke and talk shit about it, right? But the joke, of course, is that it's like push comes to shove, of all of the people, like all the places in the world to get that like military superiority at the end of World War II. Now things didn't go well. They could have gone better, but they could have gone so much worse. Like the wrong person, essentially having the most powerful military and having everyone surrender. For some people, like North Korea, that just immediately turns the world into a complete dictatorship, right? So freedom of speech is actually very important, and I think that's why a lot of people were really upset about the Charlie Kirk stuff too. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
because it's not even
exactly.
about what Charlie Kirk was. Like, I haven't actually listened to like anything he said. I don't know whether I agree or disagree with any of his main points, right? But that's not relevant. It's like I would defend Charlie's right for freedom of speech
Yeah,
till the day I die. He's allowed to say whatever he wants.
especially in such like a non-hostile environment of just like no one's ever forced to go up and talk, and it's always like an open mic, like line up and wait your turn. So it's not like anyone was forced to get up there or be exposed to that sort of content,
Mm.
which kind of
And like yeah,
it kind of like bridges in where like it is all about like what you consume these days, because like yeah, something like that might come up on your feed and you might not agree with it, but you don't have to lean into it. Like if you
mm.
didn't like the content, like why are you trying to consume that sort of content? And that goes for anything. Like if I don't like something, I'm not gonna sit there and like aggravate myself over those those online like videos.
Yeah, and even if you disagree with it, like that all just ties into freedom of speech anyway, where it's like if you want to leave hateful comments about Charlie Kirk or whatever, like it's your right to do so, just the same way that it was Charlie's right to say the thing that upset you to begin with. And like I know that's a pretty massive talking point when it comes to like, right versus left politics, is that the right's always very adamant that it's like, no, you can't control how people talk because freedom of speech is important. Um, I mean, you can point and look at many countries around the world where freedom of speech is not important, and you know that's something that in the West we take for granted
Yeah,
so much.
yeah, especially
Like
with all
you know,
that
you
stuff in like the UK with how they're treating their own citizens with what online comments they've been posting.
yeah, yeah, that's I mean, I don't even know where to start with the UK stuff. Like that. where do you even start? Like this, I feel like there's so many ways that I want to take the conversation from there that I don't even know where to start. Like, I guess just to tie it up kind of neatly, so it's like freedom of speech is very important, even if you don't agree with the person and the way that Charlie Kirk conducted his business. You can disagree with him all you want, but he was still doing it, you know, in a pretty brave way too, to be honest. Because now that you've jogged my memory a bit, so he would basically just sit up in a podium and be like, anyone that wants to debate me on any of these like political topics that that I, talk about is free to come up and debate with me. And yeah, I don't know what he was like because I haven't listened to any of his content. So maybe he was rude, maybe he wasn't, maybe he said some really like sexist or like bigoted things. I don't know, but he still did it in the format that was good. He still just stood up there and bravely accepted, threw himself in the crucible and accepted that.
Yeah, and I think it's important that like people can voice their opinions, especially in such a way that has like a back and forth debate on either side, and just be like not hostile about it.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, but
but
yeah,
yeah,
we've been
yeah, this,
been rolling for about 30 minutes. Feels like it's been no time at all. Hey.
mm, yeah, that is crazy. To think all I've done in that time is I've just been like pacing up and down in the undercover area in the backyard, like having a couple of ciggies.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
you the audio just probably picked up some rain, some light rain. I hope that hasn't completely overshadowed the chat, but that's all part of the learning experience, I suppose.
I feel
Um,
like the first one's kind of got to be a bit garbage, especially with like
mm,
like the topics we talk about. It's gonna be who knows, right? Who knows if this is any good? But like it's all subjective anyway.
exactly.
Yeah, I think like audio wise, it sounds pretty good on my end. I don't know how I sound, but
Mm, yeah, no, you
crispy.
sound clear to me. You sound
Yeah,
clear to me.
yeah. I've just
All
been
right, so I have a
smoking.
few ideas
Yeah,
about where to go next as well. So we could dive a little bit into like the UK and what's going on there and how um I don't know, like the war of like people who are like, no, immigration is so important. We have to save all these people from like these, these war torn countries and these, these terrible places and whatever. And then you have the other side being like, no, don't bring them in. They don't share our values. And they're, like the UK rape gangs is a perfect example of that, where it's like, or you look at, I'm pretty sure it's Sweden's sexual assault rates. They went from being like nowhere near the top, like way, way, way down in the bottom in obscurity for rates of sexual assault, and it pretty much perfectly lines up with immigration. And it doesn't take a fucking genius to point out that if you import people from, countries and cultures that treat women like they're subhuman, and then that happens, it isn't surprising, but it's kind of funny that you shouldn't have to be a left or a right leaning person to hear that information and be like, like what's going on there? Because
yeah,
you can take it one extreme or the other. You can either be like, oh well, I hate all of them. I hate all of the people from that culture, or all the people from that country because that's what they do. And on the other end, you can be like, you're such a racist. How can you possibly like say that? And then you're like, oh, but look at these statistics. These statistics say otherwise. And so, you know, it's there's no real winning if you take it into like a that sort of territory.
well, I think it's a
But
bit
it's a
like
problem.
it's a bit different as well because I mean over there wasn't it? It's mostly like their own citizens for the last like however often, however long, and now it's like picked up a lot. Where we are, I don't know about like your area specifically, but like there was a lot of like multicultural sort of people that we went to school with and that we were made friends with in like the community. So like for us, it's like pretty normal to have like such groups around, but for them, I guess it's
Mm.
new, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also I think the problem stems from doing it too quickly as well. Because like this is how this issue gets misrepresented, in my opinion. In fact, I have a perfect example for this now, right? So, um, all right. So where how do I? Hmm. So you have like extremes from either end that are kind of being misrepresented for the whole thing. So a good example would be so there were the marches for Palestine that we've seen in all major cities around Australia, right?
Yeah,
And there was a minority of Islamic population within those marches that burned the Australian flag, wrote things like "abolish Australia," were waving like ISIS flags and stuff, right? As their way of being like, "Yep, March for Palestine, abolish the West, you know, let's bring Sharia law to wherever we are." All right. So it's easy to take that minority and misrepresent the whole culture and be like, bruh, get them the fuck out right now. Look what they're doing. Look what they're plotting, right? Simultaneously, we had like a march for Australia that was meant to be like a protest for, and this is the key word, people who went to that rally were mainly protesting against mass immigration, not immigration as in like an acceptable, reasonable amount of immigration. People were marching against mass immigration because of the pressure it was putting on the economy. I mean, the housing market in Australia is in complete fucking shambles. The only major city that you can buy a house in, like a median house price for under $1 million, is Darwin now. Everywhere else's median house prices are over $1 million. So there were lots of people who marched because they were like, we aren't building enough houses. Turn off the fucking immigration tap because you're literally you're destroying the Australian dream for the younger generation. They're not going to be able to buy a house, right?
yeah,
But
because
what I know, and so, but then of course, sorry, just let me finish this whole point, and then,
yeah,
so
go
it's
for
like,
it.
so, but then guess who else tagged along to those protests? It was the neo Nazis and the actual racists who just hate black people. And so it was easy to misrepresent the whole protest, which had lots of people who were just like, no, let's not let Australia lose our identity and our values. No, let's just, we should be, our government is meant to serve us. They're meant to be taking care of Australians first, but they're screwing us all over, right? But the media will pick and choose. It'll pick the neo Nazis who might have had, maybe they had like bad behavior or said some questionable racist things on the megaphone, right? They pick the loud minority and misrepresent the whole March for Australia movement, the same way they misrepresent the whole March for Palestine as just being, terrorists, basically, like terrorist organizations and people who hate the West and want to destroy it. And so there you have it. That's like the whole shape of what's wrong with the media and how it keeps everyone divided and constantly fighting. Because you can fan the flames from both sides by misrepresenting both sides in that whole situation. And, just as a final note, it's like I feel like the political landscape has never been so polarizing and inflammatory. Like, I mean, maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention before, but like this just hit a bit of an apex, and yeah, like when Charlie Kirk got shot, I was like, "Fuck, is that going to start a civil war?" Like, tensions are high right now.
Yeah, yeah, you're just your microphone's kind of dropped just a little bit as well. So give us,
Yes. I'm going to switch to my computer.
yeah, that
I think
sounds
my
better.
phone's going to die. But you take over for a bit, so I'm sure that you had a lot of thoughts pop into your head while I went on my little rant there.
Yeah, I can't say I've really looked in too much. Like the only amount of news I really watch is like mainly at work. They'll just throw the news on while we have breakfast occasionally, and I kind of just look at all that You know, it's just there's never anything good on the news, in my opinion. It's always like
Mm.
tragedy or something about celebrity. So I try and steer clear of it. But no, I did see a few of those things, especially in Melbourne, where they were like throwing like rocks at the police officers, and they actually called out, that who was doing it for those protests, which is interesting because they usually like steer clear of calling out the certain groups just to save face and not cause any dramas on the internet.
Yep. I'm just going to switch to my computer. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, man, switch over.
All right, here I am. That's probably much better mic quality.
Yeah, that's quite crispy now.
And so which group was that, by the way? Was it the
It
the
was
March for a State?
Yeah, it was one of the marches for like the left, obviously. And yeah, they got violent, and one of the higher up cops actually went on the news and like showed them the rocks that they were throwing at them and called them out and said that the left were getting violent. And that like the Australian march was
Wait,
like
so
completely fine.
the American left?
No,
So
no,
yeah,
this is in
okay.
Melbourne. Yeah,
Because
in
I
Melbourne.
feel like, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that as well is because for some reason, so America's political spectrum has left being liberal and right being conservative, but it's the opposite in Australia, which confuses the hell out of everyone. So that's why I just wanted to be. So when you said that the left was getting violent, are you talking about the Palestine
Yeah,
march?
yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Because you never really. I mean, I don't watch enough news to comment completely, but yeah, you don't usually hear that they call people out like that. They usually spin the narrative the other way.
Well, yeah, well that's exactly right. Because whenever I saw any headline about the marching, they always were like, "Yep, it's the march against immigration." But it's like, you're kind of forgetting that for the vast majority of people that went, they were marching for mass, right? That's the key word, mass immigration. They weren't protesting because they hate black people. They weren't protesting because they don't want any immigration at all. They were marching because they don't want mass immigration. They don't want housing prices to keep going up because, and this is another thing that drives me completely insane, is that some people, because people tend to believe whatever their political group believes in its entirety, so they don't have any nuance or critical thinking about each individual issue. They just go, oh, so what does my group, my group identity hive mind think again? Oh, the hive mind told me that housing prices are due to John Howard and negative gearing, and it's got nothing to do with immigration. And immigration doesn't affect housing prices at all. That's what my hive mind is saying, right? But reality is, it's actually both.
Do
But
you
I've
think?
had plenty of conversations with people where they won't even concede. Like it's like you'll point out supply and demand and be like, these people don't come over with houses on their backs. So by having mass immigration in place, you are putting more stress, like you're increasing demand for houses without addressing supply, which is going to make house prices go up. You know, like it's basic economics. But
Yeah.
because their hive mind political party is just continuously regurgitating and shoving down their throat that it's actually got nothing to do with immigration, it's like, man, we can't even begin to have this conversation until you have a bit of nuance, you know? Like, you should be allowed to be like, oh, I don't like how countries that have Sharia law treat women and gay people and sexual minorities. I mean, they'll hang them and throw them off buildings in those countries for being gay, right? It's like you should be able to say that you don't agree with that, but you're still appalled about the genocide in Palestine, even though I just went between the left and right political spectrum with both of those statements to some extent, right? Because I talked about how what's happening in Palestine is bad, which is a very left heavy issue. But then I should be able to flip around and be like, oh, but I also want to buy a house and I'm not keen on mass immigration. you can hold those two beliefs simultaneously in your brain. You don't have to go back and check with the hive mind of people.
Yeah, 100%. Like formulating, because it's like anything. It's like having an influential like person in your life. You're never gonna sit there and believe absolutely everything that they tell you or do everything to the T that they do. And like same thing, like you said with the political stance. Like you take parts from each side or like in the middle, and then you formulate your own opinions. And I feel like that, there's a lot of consumption these days. So no one's really formulating their own ideas or, putting forth what they could be because they're just consuming and then regurgitating, like you said, all of like what they consume.
That's yeah, like no one's giving their brain any time to process the information that's already in there. They're just constantly binging on more information, and you know, in often cases, this is another funny topic on like while we're talking politics, I guess, is I'm convinced that most people's algorithms are actually radicalizing them and brainwashing them.
Yeah, well, if you consume one thing, then the algorithm's going to push for that if you comment, like, or even watch the entirety of that video or that post. So it's very easy for you to get like stuck in the same content over and over again, and what you consume you'll believe. Not to say like which side's right or wrong, but it's very easy to get pushed into that.
Yeah, and I always like to think about it like this as well, where so yeah, you're never consuming any content from the other side as well. So yeah, it's all just one side, whatever your leaning is, if it's left or right, you get shown content that pertains to all of that. Um, and eventually it just kind of gets slowly more and more extreme. Then you open the comments, and the comments are filled with all the people who are like, usually hardcore for whatever, you know, like
Whichever
whatever
side.
political side you're in, and then that all that does is reinforce your view because you just went and read through the top 50 comments if you just sat there scrolling reading them, and they all just basically was just a giant echo chamber of the same thing. And then you never actually go and listen to some stuff from the other side of the coin and figure out, oh, but I agreed with that as well. I agreed with both of those points from both the left and the right. They both just raised a good point, you know. Instead it's all just one side. And I actually think, this is, I don't know whether this is something I'll ever be able to do, but I would love to do a psychological study one day where I look at whether short form content is actually a form of brainwashing. Now, the reason I say that is because, have you seen Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh, not for a while, man. I can't remember.
Do you remember the whole meme where it was like, "There's no war in Ba Sing Se"?
Nah, refresh me on that one.
So basically, there is there's like a giant war going on. The Fire Nation is trying to take over the world, and the Earth Kingdom's not helping because the Earth Kingdom has brainwashed like all the people in the city, and also all the political people are too scared to speak out, even people who know the truth about the war. And they have a brainwashing technique where one of the main characters at this point of the story, it's a guy named Jet. He gets captured by the government in Ba Sing Se, and the person, they tie him to a chair basically in a dark room, and they have a candle that just keeps on slowly rotating around him, 360 degrees, slowly rotating around him. And every time the light comes into his face, blinding him, someone says to him, "There's no war in Ba Sing Se." And at first he resists it. He's like, "No, there is a war. Like, look around you. There's evidence of the war everywhere." And then, he's unable to sleep because the light keeps him awake. And eventually he can no longer consciously resist the information. Because, with your eyes or with other senses, you can you can close your eyes to stop the light getting in, but you can't close your ears. So like his brain, there are seeds being planted in his brain. He's unable to resist, and he's essentially just like a textbook brainwashing sort of exercise. And I think that short form content does the same thing because of how our brains process information. So you hear, let's say you watch like a TikTok about, I don't know, just some random bullshit, right? And maybe the first video that you watch on TikTok, you can kind of have like a moment of critical thinking. Do I agree with what they said? Do I disagree? What are the reasons? Maybe you have like enough of a, back and forth in your brain and really try and figure out whether you agreed with them or not. But the thing is, then you go to the next video that's on something completely unrelated. And now your brain is, cracked out absorbing this new information that's going into your brain, and talking at 1.25 speed and blah 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 blah, and Subway Surfers is going in the background or whatever, and it's like very very stimulating. Then you watch the next video and the next video, and before you know it, you're watching these politically charged videos. You're not stopping to think whether you agree or disagree, and then you scroll to the next one. Now, those seeds that went into your brain, because you weren't able to consciously go, oh, do I agree or do I disagree? Those seeds actually just got in for free, and they kind of bypassed your conscious mind and went straight to your subconscious, where the seeds can take root and grow. And you can imagine generations of people that are exposing themselves to very highly politically charged short form content are putting those seeds in their brains. They're not stopping to examine them, and then they're scrolling to the next video, and the brain doesn't actually have time to figure out whether it agrees with the content or not, and it just kind of gets shoved in, replaced with the new information that they're currently absorbing with the Subway Surfer random bullshit, and then they go to the next and the next and the next. And so my psychological study would be like, I'm pretty sure short form political content has actually successfully brainwashed and radicalized a generation of people.
Yeah, like whatever the algorithm can push is what like the majority are gonna think. Yeah.
And like it could be anything. Like it could be anti-Semitism, and you might start off being like, oh, okay, like that's interesting, but then it just keeps being pushed. The seeds keep going in. You see other content that's related to it. I mean, you can see this content even for like, content about why men are shit, or conversely, why women are shit, right? It's all the same thing, where it's just like that idea just radicalizes you because it's just kind of being shoved in there, and like it's and your brain doesn't get enough time to, as I said, to figure out whether you agree with it or not. And before you know it, you're having these thoughts on these subjects, and it's like, are those even really your thoughts? Or are those the seeds that got planted when you binged TikTok for 3 hours while you were half asleep rotting in bed?
And it's a good thought as well, because obviously we didn't have that short form content growing up. So imagine the sort of damage it's doing on like even younger people who, may just jump on the iPad and scroll random, TikTok videos.
Yeah.
And just
dude, I think we have no idea what the damage is going to be like. Yeah, for the poor kids, like the iPad generation just got, like, they didn't even get a chance. Like they just got completely bombarded. Right.
Yeah, they didn't get to live those those like sweet golden years before like, you got too much technology in your household. Back when you just used to climb trees or like go play with dirt. All those good times. But no,
yeah, imagination land, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is like, clearly it's very important for kids' development to actually have that free play time, to use their imaginations and everything, instead of just like, I don't know, outsourcing your own you know, like instead of just being entertained by the thoughts that your brain is producing and then seeking out, you know, meaningful information, I guess like maybe like a book or just you know, using the internet but intentionally researching on the things you're thinking about and like doing that in a constructive way, or what, you know, it's like you're almost just outsourcing. It's like I don't feel like dealing with the void today or being bored for longer than, you know, actually, you know what, yeah, I'm kind of, it's a bit more of a long, that was a very long-winded way of saying people are no longer just bored.
Yeah,
That's to summarize it. We used to just get bored and we
but
just had to deal with it and make our own fun, but now we can just scroll, immediately fix boredom.
yeah, and it doesn't even fix boredom. It kind of just distracts you from the present. Like, you know, you're sitting in the waiting room at the doctor's office and, well, look around and everyone's just, you know, on their phones. Well, I guess I'll just do the same. Like it,
And it's like there's a lot of social pressure to also just do the same as everyone else as well.
yeah, it's like staring at your phone is just easier than awkwardly looking around or trying to make conversation. But yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
but it's
what
yeah.
episode 1, what do you reckon? What's the thoughts?
I mean, we can wrap it up there if you want, or we can go maybe till, do you want to go till like 10
Yeah, yeah.
and a nice round number,
Yeah, we can go to
and
that.
unless it really dries up, we can just call it there. But
Yeah, yeah. We're sitting at about
I think we covered
56
a lot of really
minutes.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I definitely like if we want to get, you know, more political on the topics, I guess I'd have to do a bit more research into everything, but
Or even at the very least, like I feel like it's not even about being political. I think it's about pointing out that both sides of the political spectrum get misrepresented in order to keep everyone like fighting with each other and distracted. You know, I mean, maybe it really is divide and conquer. Like, you know, that's a very popular way of pointing it out. You know, it's like if you want to control a population, you want to distract them from all the inequalities and the, you know, the fuckery that's going on. I mean, Epstein Island's a good example of that. It's like, no, don't talk about Epstein Island. Keep fighting about random bullshit. You know, misrepresent both sides of both parties to make them look stupid, so that everyone can, you know, they can build a straw man argument of the other side of the political spectrum, just to, you know, just to, yeah, fuck it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, didn't know where
Um,
like the I guess the what do we even call it, a podcast, I guess, or just blokes chatting. It's pretty much all it is. Didn't know where it was
yeah,
going
I
to
feel
take
like
us.
the word podcast is so like, it's so cringe that I don't I don't even want to refer to what we're doing as a podcast, but unfortunately, it pretty much fits the description
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So
I think blokes chatting is
that's
just where
actually,
we'll go with
yeah,
it. I
yeah.
think.
Vox chatting. Uh,
Yeah, it could just be like pub talk pretty much. Imagine you and the boys, just like the background
so
sound is just some pokies going off.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are we? That's another good question. So what are we gonna call it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Aussie yarn or something. Got to have the word Aussie in it, surely.
You think so? Are there
Maybe.
no like prominent Australian podcasters? Is there a market there?
Yeah, I don't think
Uh,
I know there's like Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think there's like much Australian podcast that I've ever looked into, so I couldn't tell you. Like I know there's like certain channels that do, more political content or like watching videos and reacting to them. But I know there's a lot of like, war sort of podcasts in Australia as well. But that's like more
Mm.
specific instead of just whatever this is.
Mm. And we talked about it as well. So we got D1 and D2
Yeah, D1
coming at you live.
live. Yeah, we could do a live podcast. That'd be funny. Like react to comments. We'd need commenters and actually following first, but
Look, if we did that, we have to do a tribute to Filthy Frank, and we have to call it "Loser Reads Hater Comments." And like, we don't have to act like Filthy Frank or anything. But when we read the hater comments, we just have to call it that.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been just
Yeah,
like staring at my
yeah.
like computer background most of the time because it changes every 10 minutes, and yeah, it was Filthy Frank about
Oh
like
yeah.
20 minutes ago. Now it's on the Big Les show,
Oh, nice,
which is
nice.
that's
I
probably
mean,
peak Australian humor, really.
it is. It is. Um, I really need to give it I need to give it a rewatch, and I need to watch some of the new content they've brought out. Apparently, actually maybe when we stop filming, we can watch some if you can. I
Yeah,
wouldn't mind watching the Clarence show again. Or I watched the first few episodes of the Clarence show, and that was pretty funny. That I particularly thought the scene where Clarence is boxing one of the Sasquatches.
yeah, Donnie.
And he's like very reluctant. Yeah, and he like doesn't want to do it, but he's kind of being peer pressured into it. He's like, "Put him up, cunt! Put him up!" And he like, as soon as Clarence puts his hands up, he just like beats the shit out of him. It's just
Yeah,
like classic Clarence. It's just a great It was just a great scene. Like they really, because you kind of run out of ideas. Obviously Clarence, his whole character is he's meant to be like the butt of the joke, right? That's just his the archetype that he is in the show. But like you do run out of ideas for how you can make someone the butt of a joke, and you'd think they'd probably covered them all. But I thought, yeah, the boxing scene was it was pretty funny.
yeah, no, they
We should
really
probably,
killed it. And if you've seen like the behind the scenes as well, like Jared actually sits there and makes all the sounds. Like, the door opening is like his screen
yeah.
door, and he's like cup of coffee sipping and stuff. Like it's all just like really well made, and the transition from how the animation started to where it got to.
Jared Wright honestly is like an incredible artist because he started off with a few friends, right? But then gradually his friends kind of moved on and did other things. But it was so obvious that this was Jared's. It was his brainchild and his thing. So everyone left, and he still went. He's still he was the brains of the operation and the main creative force behind it. Like that's the spirit of the Big Les show flows through him. Um, and it's so obvious that that spirit is still there because all of his spin-offs and all of the future content he's done, from what I've seen, I haven't seen all of it, but it's still really good, right? It's not like a show that changes writers halfway through and you can just immediately be like, wait a second, like this is completely different. The vibe is all wrong. It's still him.
Yeah, I think like with how the series was, the first season didn't even seem like it was going anywhere until like season, maybe like later in the season with all the tumors, and then season two like picking up. Like it was interesting that there was actually a story, and it wasn't just
Mm.
some dumb episode to episode of dudes getting, you know, munted or just getting into shitty situations.
Yeah, yeah. The first episode of the Big Les show that I saw was the Tripper Snipper one.
Oh, instant classic that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And then naturally, I watched. I think that's season 2 is the Tripper Snipper one. So I saw that and went, oh yeah. Watched all of season 1, and yeah, loved it. Me and my high school friends would just feel like sitting around watching it. And it was perfectly timed as well because that's around the same time as like I started like getting into like smoking billies and stuff. So of course you light up and everyone's going like pull 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 pull. It's just
It's really
it's
like
just
the
endless.
the Aussie humor that I guess you just can't exactly relate to unless you lived through the Australian schooling system and all of that.
Yeah.
It was
Oh
magical.
boy. Yeah. Yeah, it was. Very grateful to have been born and raised here.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been good. There's yeah, I'd love to go overseas and like trial out some other places just for a bit of a poke around, but overall like no complaints.
Mm. All right. Well, I think we can probably call it there. I'm just trying to think. Is it, we don't even have to come up with a name. We can continue to think about it as the
Yeah.
episodes go.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we'll like throw up a name, and if we like want to change it, we just change it. But yeah, I guess like we had no idea where it was going, and I guess it ended up being some random political talk, and then the Big Les show, and just our thoughts on random topics. So I mean, nothing
Yep.
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We know what the topic will be for next time, but yeah, we needed to wait, I reckon. So
Yeah, and I think tomorrow needs to be. We need to talk about dating apps.
yeah, yeah, that's
I
definitely where
think
it's
that
going.
is like it needs, because I feel like it will actually shed light. I think there's a lot of guys out there that are like, oh my god, like why am I not getting any matches, or oh, what's going on?
It's the lighting, bro.
Why did someone who seemed interested in me for the last few days just completely stop like talking to me out of the blue or some shit? Do you know what I mean? It's like they need to know it's not their fault and explain the whole thing. So
Yeah, no, I think I've
good.
liked this episode. It's definitely a bit more political than I'm used to, but overall, it's going to be interesting just to throw ourselves into the deep end because if we don't start now, we could always start tomorrow. That's the trap.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the trap.
Yeah, maybe should that be part of the name for the thing? Should it be something about I don't know, the Don't Start Tomorrow podcast or some
Oh,
shit?
I don't want podcast in the name. Nah, it's a
Yeah,
podcast.
I know,
Let's
I
be
know, I
real.
know, I know.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Not having podcast in the name, but
yeah,
like
yeah,
just the whole idea of that being a thing,
yeah,
that being that. But we can spitball some more ideas and go from there.
yeah. Well, I guess this is us signing off or whatever you want to call it, and we'll
Yep,
be
yep.
back
This is I'll be D2, D2 signing off.
D2, D1. All right. Thanks for listening. Peace.